So now let's just quickly validate our email, that is host the validate email.php file in our Flutter application, just like we did for our sign up. So in here on our API connection.dart file, we will first add our file and we will assign that to this validate email. Okay, validate email, and you know that inside the user folder we have the file by the name validate underscore email.php file, which is basically our this validate email.php file. Okay, we implement the backend code for validating the email. The file name is validate underscore email.php, which is inside the user folder. You can see that. So as now we have implemented the validate email backend, so now we can simply validate email and allow the user to sign up. So inside our this method, which is validate user email, we will use the try catch block, that is try, and if any error occur, then that will be inside the catch, that is E stands for exception. So inside try, make sure to make this validate user email method asynchronous, since you know that we will wait for the response from the server. So we can say wait, and in order to communicate with the API, or you can say with our server, we need to add the dependency for HTTP. So for that purpose, go to your favorite browser and go to the pub.dev site and simply search for HTTP, and this one, which is HTTP, just click on it and click on installing and copy this dependency, which is HTTP, and come back to the project, and in here in the project where we have pubspec.yaml file, we will add this dependency below this get, just like this, and click on, if the debugging is on, okay, that is this red button, make sure to click that first, and then when you pass the HTTP, then click on pub-get button in order to install the HTTP packages in our this Flutter Close App project. So it has been added successfully. Now let's just go back to our signup screen.dart file, and here we can first add a import a package, which is http.dart, this one, okay, as http, just like this. So now we can say http, and as you know that we are sending data, so we will use the post method, which I already explained. Post is used when you want to communicate, that is when you want to send data to the server. Okay, so we will say http.post URL, and the URL is basically our connection to the API, that is API. Okay, so we can, with the help of that, we can say API, which is class API. Okay, so we can say API dot, and first we are going, as you know, we are validating the email, so we can call up our validate email, that is API dot validate email, and we have to wrap this inside URI.parse. So we can say URI.parse, and in here we can simply paste that API.validate email, which simply means that API validate email, that is this link, this URL. Okay, that is we are validating the email. With the help of our API, we are calling the validate email.php backend, and you know that validate email.php is responsible for the communication with our server, that is it will check either the email already exists in the database or not. Okay, same goes for the sign up, which we will implement now. So we just call our validate email, which is, let me tell you again, which is this URL. Okay, with the help of our API, we are communicating with validate email backend, which will validate each and every user email address whenever a new user try to sign up for the first time. And alongside with that, we have to pass the information to the validate email. So you know that validate email needs only one thing which we have to pass, is basically the user email, which the user will type in the email text field. Okay, so that email we have to send. So for that purpose, we can simply say body, and let's pass that data, which is email. So I hope now you understand it further more in details. Inside the single quotes, we can say by the same key name. Okay, as you know that we are receiving it here by this key name user underscore email. So by the same key name, we have to pass this data, that is user underscore email, just like this. And the values, that is any email which the user type here, let's say john@gmail.com, this value is saved inside our controller, which is basically the email controller dot text. In this way we can get this value from it, which is basically, let's say john@gmail.com. So this is the sending part. Okay, that is, first what we did, we with the help of our API, we call up our email backend. Okay, as you know, PHP is a backend language which is responsible for communication with the server. So with the help of our API, we communicate with the server, that is on this file, which is basically this URL. Okay, that is validate email.php. So in here it will perform these functionalities, that is, it will check either that email already exists in the database or not. Okay, if it exists, then it will execute the if statement, otherwise it will execute the else statement, and the response will come with the value success. That is, if the email exists already in the database, then success will be true, otherwise if not exists, then success will be false. So simple and so easy. And alongside with that, you know that that is how we are communicating, that is which information we are passing alongside, that is to our API, to our validate email.php file. To that we are passing user underscore email, which we receive here by the same key name. Okay, we are passing it by the name user underscore email, and with the same key name we are receiving it here, as you can see here. So I hope you understand all these things now. And now as we are passing this, okay, as we pass this information, this is just the communication. Let me tell you, this is just the communication. With the help of our API, we communicate with the validate email backend. Okay, that is communication with the server for validating email, and then we pass user email to our that, okay, to our that validate email.php, that is which will communicate and which is responsible for communication with the server. Okay, which will check that if the email already exists or not. Okay, so this is just the sending part. Now comes the response time, that is our API will give some response, that is either the email exists or if the email do not exist. So if it exists and if it not exist, according to that we have to display any message to the user. So after this HTTP post, which is the sending part, now comes the response. So we can, for the response, we can say if the, let's assign this to a variable and we will give it name as res. Res simply means response from the server. Okay, so the response which is coming from the server, okay, the thing which I explained in details, okay, for validating the email. So the response which will come from the server, so we will say that if response dot status code, if the response dot status code becomes equals to 200. Now you must be thinking, that is, what is this response means? Okay, that is 200. What 200 means? 200 basically means that if you search on Google the HTTP 200 OK success status, response code indicate that the request has succeeded. That is, we have communicated successfully with our server with the help of our API. Okay, so when we communicate successfully to our server with the help of our API, then in that case the response code will be 200. So if the response status code is 200, it means everything goes successfully. That is, no error occur. Remember, this is connection with API to server. That is, we are connected successfully, everything goes successfully. Okay, it simply means that. From Flutter app, the connection with API goes successfully. Now the response which will come from the as a result, okay, the response which will come from the server, or you can say from the MySQL database, that will be basically in JSON. So we have to decode that JSON. So we can say JSON decode response dot body. JSON decode response dot body. We get that response, and we will assign this to a variable, and we will give it name as response body. And we can then further check if response body, if the response body exists. Okay, if response body exists, please use the same keyword. Okay, it is according to the documentation. That is, if the response body exists, then what it means? Response body exists simply means that the if condition executed, that is, number rows length is equals to 1, that is, email already exists, email already in someone else use. Okay, it not means error, it simply means that email is already in someone else use. So success is true, that is, this query executed successfully. That is, number of rows exist, number of row, or you can say number of that record basically exist in the database. So it will execute this if condition, that is, email is already in someone else use. And you already know that what I mean when this first if condition executed, that is, the user is trying to sign up for the first time using someone else email, using already existing email, and I have explained this scenario in details in the last video. Okay, so this will execute this one. Okay, so what I mean is, if the response body exists, it simply means that what it means, it means it is true, that is, success equals to true. And success equals to true simply means that number of rows, that is, the length of the row is 1, that is, that record already exists. So email is in someone else use, so we will display a message according to that to the user, that is, please try with another email. So for that purpose we will use toast messages. So let's just go to the browser and let's search for another dependency which is toast, which is by the name Flutter toast. This first one, which is Flutter toast. Click on it and click on installing, and just copy this dependency Flutter toast and come back here to the project, go to the pubspec.yml file and simply paste that dependency just like this and click on pubget, and it has been added successfully. Now let's come back here to the signup screen.dart file, and now here we can say Flutter toast dot show toast, and the message will be email is already in use, someone else use, you can say someone else use. You can say try another email, try another email. Email is already in someone else use, try another email. And you know that, that is, if the email already exists, that is, if the success is true. If the success is not true, that is, if the email is not in someone else use, then that thing we will implement inside the else statement, and that will be basically register or you can say register and save new user record to database.